Good morning, everyone. Wish I could really be there in person, but today we're going to do our episode and portion of the Terre Haute Women's Conference with the theme of Limitless. As many of you may or may not know, I'm Rebecca Dutcher. I'm the owner and founder of Red 66 Marketing. I have worked in agencies most of my career, from everything from web development, search engine marketing, a lot of digital marketing, and we do a lot of social media strategy and work for our clients. It's certainly a mix of paid and organic for clients, but as my career has developed and as we've seen over the years, social media has impacted everyone's work, career, and our teams. There's no shortage in the number of articles and insights about the pros and cons of social media's use, especially when it comes to young and emerging leaders. And as you develop your leaderships, and we're never really done, right? Developing our leadership skills, the influence, building your career, there are so many different approaches and things you can take in your own use of social media to build your influence, to connect with teams, to build your personal brand and your network. So I'm going to talk about, some examples, how you can utilize social media to position yourself for career growth, for thought leadership, and to demonstrate integrity for yourself, your company, and for your team. Especially relevant, over the last several months with COVID and the pandemic, people working more remote, we're connecting through social media and channels like we never had before. So let's go ahead and get started this morning. All right, so some fun quotes and anecdotes that I'll include in the presentation are things like this from Eric Qualman. We don't have a choice on whether we do social media. The question is how well we do it. We're in an age where probably 80% of the population are actually on one social media channel or more. There's several ways you can use social media to make you a better leader. Here are just a few examples and some fun graphics. Certainly making better decisions with access to information, making sure that you're able to know what is fake news, what's relevant, and what's not. Being open to exchange ideas with others and take that information in. We do better business performance through relational engagement. So whether you're doing social media for your brand, yourself, your personal brand, being engaging, thoughtful, and sharing good information. It's a conversation. It's not just a way to blast information. And you have better odds when you succeed with transformation through a mindset change. So we've seen our use of social media evolve, identifying a territory to a network and connecting with other people. So having that open mindset where you can connect with others and be open to their ideas is important. Just another fun graphic I like to share, digital leadership. Certainly there's, new currency with your likes, your followers, how many people you're connected to, sharing your story, sharing helpful information, certainly listening, being open to engage with others and inspire. And this is a little old stat there in 2013, but more than 40% of the world's population is online and social media. The technology that connects us, it also controls us, distracts us, monetizes us, and manipulates us. The source is The Social Dilemma. Not sure if you've had a chance to watch that movie, documentary drama yet on Netflix, but it is very insightful and noteworthy just for the world that we're in today. Social media is being used today and it's totally changing our world. So it's being used to shape politics, certainly business, world, culture, education, careers, innovation, society as we know it, awareness, activism, looking at different things happening with Black Lives Matter. We see a lot of people sharing information related to the upcoming election. Sadly, sometimes we see activism turn into slacktivism, where people take a stand online, but moving them to action isn't really happening behind the scenes. Certainly digital commerce and social media commerce, you find things that you didn't even know you needed. People are and businesses are marketing to people. The consumer data that they have on us and our buying behaviors is incredible. Things that we like and shop for, things that we, again, didn't even know we needed. And certainly employment is big in social media, networking, finding out about jobs, building your profile, and the amount of hiring managers that actually use social media to look at some of their candidates. So this is just fun. Again, you're going to change the world with an online petition. We've all probably seen change.org, a Facebook status update, and a couple of retweets. Yeah, you're probably right. I should add a few more links. Everyone is pretty powerful behind their keyboard, but let's keep in mind that social media certainly has a real world component and being connected to others. When I was doing research for this presentation and gathering some different stats, talking about just social media, your career, and things like that, I found a ton of negativity. A few titles that I found were "Don't Let These Social Media Mistakes Ruin Your Career," 7 Negative Effects of Social Media in the Workplace. I mean, that's kind of sad that there's so much negative out there about the use of social media when it really can be used for good. There's a ton of different opportunity with social media. That's what we want to talk about today. You can personify your brand. Again, whether that's your thought leadership, your personal brand, if you're looking for a new position, but you can, and also for your company, right? You put voice and a tone and a feeling behind it. Build your reputation. You can build different connections with other people, with communities, with influencers. You can become an influencer yourself around whether it's social change, again, thought leadership, things like that. Throughout the pandemic, we've been able to stay in touch with families, friends, coworkers through social media like we hadn't before, staying connected, things like that. Think about how many of you did like a Zoom happy hour or Zoom calls just to stay connected. Those are different things that social media and digital technology has allowed us to do. Certainly it's a balance, the good and the bad, the pros and cons of any tool or channel these days, right? As leaders, it's our job to use social media for good, to build our company and personal brands, to expand our sphere of influence, to connect to like-minded individuals, professionals, and leaders, and kind of build our own tribes. We can start social change or advocacy for causes, for ourselves, for our companies, and social media is one tool, like I said, but we back it up in real life. So some of the pros, obviously marketing, building relationships, recruitment, building your reach, networking, staying connected. Cons, losing productivity in the workplace. It can ruin relationships. It can be used to screen candidates. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing if you're a hiring manager, but if you're a candidate, be careful of what you have on your social media channels. Another con is sharing misinformation, causing anxiety, and the manipulation that does take place, sadly. And there's a little bit more on that later. For a lot of you, it's still reminders of all this stuff, but it's reinforcement to help us all. We're in a time, obviously, information is power. Information shares, it's shared and distributed amongst us faster than it ever was before. Sadly, fake news is shared 6 times faster than real news is on social media. So again, I mentioned the social dilemma. So this is one point that really stood out. Looking at how we can harness the power of social media for good and for our leadership. So distributing positive information, sharing fact-checked articles from reliable sources. Those are all really important things that we do as leaders when we want to, build that sphere of influence. We want to share good information. We want to change our work and change our networks, making sure that we're using relevant sources and not getting caught up in a lot of the drama that takes place online today. One other thing that really stood out in the social dilemma was that only 2 different organizations or industries call their customers users: illegal drugs and software. So while we're all using social media, how we use it for good, ideally, is what's most important. Just one other fact, like I had mentioned earlier, back in 2018, 73% of Americans used at least one of 8 different social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. And it's probably even higher. While not all use it consistently, a lot of people are using it more and more consistently over the last 6 to 7 months. So why and how do we use it? What's the motivation? Providing value. Are you providing valuable content through your social media channels, sharing helpful articles, motivation, certainly being entertaining? How often have you watched a funny video or shared memes or GIFs? I'm still going to call them GIFs with others. Defining yourself. People get to know you online as long as you make sure your online self and your real self are connected in the same person. You can grow and nourish relationships. Again, going back to the last 6 months of 2020, staying connected to family and friends that you aren't able to get together with, using social media to see what they're up to, support one another. Social media is used for good in that case. And certainly social media helps us get the word out when you can share good information, calls for action, calls for assistance for like local nonprofits, community organizations. Those are all good things behind social media. A fascinating study I read by the New York Times Consumer Insight Group, it revealed different motivations for participants and like why they shared information on social media. A big one was the desire to reveal valuable and entertaining content to others. So, I mean, these are things that people talk about, right? So social media, it does seem like you have those different buckets of people, those that are, dramatic and woe is me, they tend to drag us down. Those that are, politically or divisive in their content, where they're sharing obviously their thoughts, which they're open to, but not in a very thought-provoking, encouraging way. And then there's also those that, use it to share good information, to make sure the right content gets out to people. And also there's those that are just out there to entertain. So it takes all of us really to make up the social media sphere that we're in. One big thing is using it for your own good. That's why we're here. Social media has become an inevitable tool for recruiting personnel. So your profile on social media can have an impact on your job opportunities. You can also use social media to keep your private life separate from your professional. So making sure you have mindfulness when when you are out there, when you're posting things. Certainly separating your Facebook from your Instagram, from your LinkedIn, not sharing the exact same thing through every channel. But when you think about your professional versus your personal, I'm sure many of you who are watching this today are very mindful of your LinkedIn profiles. They're carefully curated. You share valuable content, probably some of that on Facebook as well. And Instagram can be more personal just because it's visual and photos and things that, that are in our day-to-day lives. Making sure that you curate your profiles, right? Sharing good information, that, there's thought behind it. Whenever I'm out with friends or things like that and family, they know not to, not to tag me or post a lot of photos if we're having cocktails or things like that. So those are all, important aspects of your personal brand. Using social media to generate your network. I had the opportunity back when I was on an AMA board, I did a lot of programming and reached out to a lot of our speakers through LinkedIn. And so I was able to build a network of people that are all across the country that came in to speak and present to our group just through social media connection. And these are people I never would have met in real life. Obviously using social media to get the job that you want, to land the client that you want, or to help build those donors. You can use it to build your own sphere of influence. Certainly influencers are used when it comes to consumer products and brands, but also, again, a lot of our keynote speakers and things today, they've used social media and their online platforms to build their influence about their content to develop those speaking opportunities. Building your own brand and connecting your team. A lot of my team works remote. We have, some that are in California, some in Indianapolis, some in West Michigan, some in Illinois. So, we have different groups. We tag each other on different posts and share good information between each other. So demonstrating your leadership, like I said, and this, I feel like a broken record a little bit, but talking about, again, your profiles, your social handles. There's a lot of people that, I'm connected to on Facebook or LinkedIn, and I have no idea what their Instagram handle means. And that's fine, because that might be how they keep things completely separate. But if you look at mine are all very consistent. And again, that's a personal choice, but those are how can you look at building that brand when you develop your social handles. Certainly having your own personality and things. You don't want to be a robot or just an information sharer, but you want to let people get to know who you are a little bit. The appearance, obviously, photos are a big one, and we'll touch on that later, more when it comes to human resource, obviously. Your style, your authenticity, being the real you without being offensive. Again, and that would depend on your audience and who you're talking to, that what does offensive or unprofessional look like to them. And certainly the mix of content that you share, right? Do you only share articles, or do you have some content in your take on those articles? Do you share videos? What are you sharing, photos? What types of things do you sprinkle in through your social media channels to develop and demonstrate your leadership? When we look at, building our social media networks and building our own profiles and our presence, it's a lot about personal branding. And I love this quote, because you are your own unfair advantage. And social media gives us the power and the tools to really demonstrate that, right? To thousands of people that we wouldn't meet in real life or at a networking event, when we can have networking events again. But again, keep that in mind. You are your own unfair advantage. And if you don't necessarily talk about you or the work that you're doing or the things you're involved in, people wouldn't have any idea. Now, getting in a little bit to some of the HR aspect, I'm not going to touch a ton on that, because I feel like as professional women, we probably know this, but 70% of recruiters have rejected a candidate based on information found online. So keep in mind that recruiters, HR professionals, they are checking out your social media profiles and your presence probably, right after they look at your resume. So they might not even reach out depending on what they find. And again, that's part of curating your content. It's also, setting your privacy settings on your profiles when it comes to like the personal stuff on Facebook. You can still have your own personal presence with friends and family that, you keep there. So just be mindful of your privacy settings, and obviously be mindful of what you put on social media. Hard to believe that we still talk about that today, but it is still happening. Again, I like to have a little fun. So I don't know who you are if someone reaches out to you, right? But I will look you up on LinkedIn and I will find you. True story, right? If someone reaches out to you or you've got a connection request via LinkedIn, the first thing you're going to do is check out their profile and probably end up on a little one of those unproductive rabbit trails as you investigate and learn more about that person. So the 70% that might not hire someone, we also know 19% of hiring managers make decisions based on what they find on social media. So that can be good or bad. When 20% of hiring managers are using social media as like a deciding factor, that's a pretty big deal. I just want to share this example of a difference of different profiles, right? So this young man, Jordan Taylor, right? He might be looking for a job, his first job, or he's a college student. But if you're a hiring manager and you're picking between him or Maria, right? Who would you look at, right? He's a little too passive, not very aggressive. His website is Messy Jordan, where you look at, Maria, she's reader, writer, founder, MIT fellow, and then her website. So again, these are pretty extreme examples, but these are the things that recruiters, potential clients, partners, they all look at. Now, getting into a little bit of the negative of social media, and these are things to keep in mind for yourself, your family, but and it's all over the news, especially today with the pandemic and how people are, they just have these devices and social media channels to stay connected, whether it's locally, regionally, nationally. People they're disconnected in person, and they're down. So and many of us have heard about the impact of social media on teens and how it's impacting them over the last several months and even before them, which is really sad. But these are things to be mindful of, right? So teens, and really all of us, social media can cause anxiety and depression, insecurity. I find myself in that same boat a little bit as I'm scrolling through, some social media feeds, and I see whether it's other agencies or other professional women I know, and they're sharing great stuff. And I'm like, darn it, I'm not doing good enough. I'm not doing well enough, or I should be doing this. It's really easy to get caught up in that and that insecurity. So be mindful of the time that you spend there, and what you let fill your brain, really, because it can really bum you out really fast. But we want to use it for good and use it as our thought leadership. So we all know social media can be highly addictive. I mentioned going down a rabbit trail. That social comparison, I just talked about my example. And FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. So people want to be a part of things. They want to connect with others. And it's okay to set your phone down, right? And not be on social media for a few days. And we look at, the social media and all the technology, like I talked earlier, that connects us. Students today with virtual learning, this technology that connects us to teachers and friends, it is that source of anxiety, depression, and sadly manipulation. We know it's, again, addictive, all that good stuff. In watching that documentary, The Social Dilemma, they talked about, those likes and those good comments. It is addictive. It's proven studies, because it gives us a shot of dopamine, right? And that feel good chemical in our brain. So we like it when people like our stuff, right? Like our photos. But when there's bad news, or there's no interaction, or you might share a photo or something that you think is really great and no one responds, that can trigger, that insecurity, that depression, and so much more. So again, my biggest piece of advice is using social media wisely, limiting your time personally, even professionally, because if you're always on social media, how productive are you? Teasing a little bit, but just making sure you're thoughtful. A little bit more on that addiction. 92% of American teens check social media regularly. Guys, that's almost like all of them. 24% of them constantly. Some of the people that were interviewed on The Social Dilemma, they were executives in Google, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, you name it. Some of them don't even allow their kids to have social media, don't allow them to have phones, or their screen time is very, very limited, and that's for a reason. Now, again, there's a lot of great stuff that we're talking about, but just being aware of the manipulation, the advertising, and the things that are done through digital marketing. No doubt, obviously, nearly half of teen girls admit that social media made them feel bad about themselves. I'm certainly not a teen girl, but social media, there are things that make you feel insecure. It doesn't matter who you are. And again, those likes or followers that we talked about, that whole brain stimulation that rewards us. The most important thing, I think, when it comes to using social media, as women leaders, as thought leaders, that we are ourselves. We use it responsibly, we use it professionally, don't get caught up in a lot of the drama, and making sure that when we are online and sharing content, or talking to others through social, that it's pretty consistent with who they're going to run into, at a networking event or on the street. That consistency, making sure who you are is authentically you. Again, if you use social media for your employer, for your career, take time to understand the voice of the brand, separating it from yourself personally. Certainly, you're in the business of content marketing you when you're on your social media channels. Leverage it for those social media connections. Use it to find employees or contractors and maintain different relationships. Some of those examples that I shared, like finding speakers and people I've met at events from, an AMA summit in, several states away. I was able to connect with others that are on the East Coast, West Coast, that we stay connected just purely through LinkedIn and know what people are up to. And it's really cool to think about how, this gal who lives in West Michigan now, has a network that spans the entire country of these professional people where we have things in common, and it's really cool to have those connections. And, if I need help with a contractor or a resource or a speaker, I have this network to reach out to. So that takes a lot of curation and cultivation, not just reaching out and asking for things, but, being a valuable resource for them as well. So my last little bit on social media and its impact on our world is that with every post, every comment, or every share, you are either building or killing your brand, whether that's your company brand or your personal brand. That's pretty powerful stuff to think about. So I invite you to join the conversation. You can connect with me, obviously, on social media, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or Instagram. My handles are usually, it's RC Dutcher, and you can email me at Rebecca@Red66Marketing with any questions, comments, thoughts. I would love to hear from you. And I really appreciate your time in listening to this and really wish we could have been in person today. Have a great day and go do great things. Thanks, everyone.